Alright, people, welcome back. We are now on to part 5 of our mini-series reviewing all the theme parks I've been to this summer. And this trip will go over, I believe I saved the worst for last. This is Six Flags over Georgia. I'm not going to hide it out of the gate. Worst theme park experience, well, one of the worst theme park experiences I've had. I mean, it wasn't terrible. Well, I'll just get into it. I'll let you know. So, starting off, I decided since I got in for free, honestly, I don't even know if it was worth my time, even though I got in for free. So, I got in for free because it was part of the things I get into with Dollywood. So I went there on my way back home from Dollywood. Stopped in town that night, actually early that morning. I drove there that morning. And about an hour after park open, and I tried to get in. The parking there is horrendous. Like, the way they have the entrance right off the road, and it's in the middle of a busy stop sign intersection. Not a stoplight, a stop sign intersection. And there is not enough space, or at least the entrance I went into. And so I was sitting there for about an hour they had to condense 3 lanes of traffic as well as 2 side lanes of traffic trying to get into the park into 1 lane, while also in the same intersection trucks were trying to go across the interchange to get onto the highway. It was terrible. Worst part is after it all went down to 1 lane, it then opens up into 2 later. So they wasted all that time trying to get all these cars to merge. And I was waiting in there for such a long time. And worst part is, there was parking. I saw there was like third-party parking for $20 out in front, and it wasn't full. So I'm thinking, if it's not full, then maybe it's not the best. I'll just wait and see what the official parking is. I should have taken it. Because even though I got into the park for free, I still had to pay for parking for the park. You know how most parks had it for around $20 for a parking fee? This one was $35. I paid $35 to park at this stupid park. I should have just taken the third-party, like, $20 lot. I don't know why I didn't. So, I wasted time there and money. Finally get there, not in that good of a mood. I get in the park, and well, let's just, I will say, I don't know if I should say this first and then do the tier list or vice versa. I will say they had lots of staffing problems. Like, it was really bad. Not most, but a ton of rides were closed. They just couldn't find the people for it. And the people that were there were tired and were in no mood to talk to guests. Like, the staff were on their, like, last limbs that were there. So they weren't the nicest, but I can see why they were feeling like that. Most people, the people that were working there for the summer are probably left to go back to school or whatnot. And they kept as many of the rides as they could open, but so many were closed. Like, almost all the flat rides were closed, except for a few. And so I just wanted to get my coaster credits, get in, and get out. So what I did was this. I started with Georgia Scorcher. Let's do the tier list. Georgia Scorcher was my second ever standing coaster, after Vortex at Carowinds. I will say, this one was better than Vortex. It was a better standing coaster. It wasn't as uncomfortable. Didn't have to wait too long for it. It was kind of short, but I didn't wait too long for it. It was relatively nice. It was a decent start to my day. It made me feel slightly better after having to pay $35 for parking. I'm going to set it in B tier for now. I may move it later, but we'll set it there. I'm going to go kind of rapid fire through these. You will also notice that a lot of these right here, these all were closed. I was going to try to go on a lot of these. These two, I don't know if they're actual coasters. I think they're just thrill rides. But Blue Hawk was one I did want to go on. It was an old Arrow, but it had a lot of cool Actually, I don't know if it was Arrow or Vekoma, but it was really cool looking and it was closed. They were running test trains on it, but it was closed. So, as well as this like looping one loop coaster here. And I also didn't ride this one. I forgot if this one was closed or not, but yeah, a lot of rides were closed. So after going to Georgia Scorcher, I went to Goliath. Goliath is the big hypercoaster they have. It's the biggest in the park. The first ride was pretty good. I got on it relatively quickly, and it was a decent hyper. Now, it wasn't as good as Fury or Intimidator in Carowinds, but it carries the park. So I wanted to go on it again because it had cool elements. Like it had like a really cool looping element as well that almost made me like brown or black out for a bit, which was really cool. I liked it with those high G turns. It had a lot of high G turns. The hills weren't as smooth as some of the airtime hills on the other coasters, which was eh. But I mean, I wanted to ride it again, so I got in line for it again. And they only had 2 people running the ride. 2 people, like one checking all the restraints, actually maybe 3. So 2 people checking restraints and 1 dispatch. And none of them, they were all talking with each other and none of them were actually paying attention. They were just going through the motions. So the ride's restraints release from front to back. And if there's a problem releasing the restraints, it will stop releasing the restraints for the back of the train. So the one we were about to get on, the people before, their restraints didn't go up when they got back into the station. So they were trying to flag people down because they weren't getting out. And the staff just didn't notice. We had to yell across the station because it's a big station. We had to yell across the station for any of the staff to actually and like point to them because they were about to launch the train again. So it was really embarrassing. So they finally got the other people out and it took like a long time. We finally got sat down. Then they had to reset the lap bar or the restraint for the person next to me because he was kind of big chested. But and then we finally got that done and went on the ride. And as we were going on the ride, I saw some like liquid fly by during one of the turns near the end. Turns out someone ahead of us had puked. Yeah. So yeah, not too fun. I was in one of the almost last rows, like second to last. Thankfully, none of it got on me, but they had to close the ride after to clean that seat, so or at least delay the ride. And thankfully, I was lucky I didn't get puke all over me from the person who blew their chunks. But yeah, not. I was kind of a sign of the vibe to come for the rest of the park. So the ride itself, minus that incident. Oh, I forgot to mention, they also forgot to release our restraints again because the restraints had problems releasing. So again, the staff were not paying attention. So I will say the ride itself is A tier, and yeah, this tier list doesn't have every ride I want to do, so I'm gonna have honorary spots for other ones that I can't really program into here right now. So let's just move on. Next up was Daredevil Drop, or whatever this one was. This one looked like a miniature version of a Eurofighter, even though it wasn't. It was just, smaller trains and kind of tighter looping turns, and it had like an over 90-degree drop. I waited longer than I wanted to for it. It was kind of a slow to get on, but the ride itself was decent. Drop's cool, but then everything else was just run-of-the-mill swoops and some inversions. So I would put it in C tier, below Georgia Scorcher. And again, I'm gonna rapid fire. I'm doing this in order of me riding them during the day. So the next one I went to was Batman the Ride, and at this point I was really thirsty. Turns out all the water fountains in the place were broke. No water fountains in the entire park were working, and water bottles were $6. At least in the vending machines, they were like $6. And I wasn't going to pay that. So I was looking around for a place to get a cup of water. And most of the food locations were closed. So there was nowhere to get water in the front half of the park. And I was like dying of thirst. Kind of like I am now, because I haven't drank water in a while here. And I asked a janitor where there was a place to get water when the water fountains were broken, and he just said buy one. Really? It was just, I was pissed at that point. But anyway, I went on the Batman ride. And it kind of made up for my mood there. Batman ride, pretty good. They have like a Batcave theme, and they kind of theme the queue like you're going through sewers and stuff. It was kind of bare minimum, but it's better than nothing. And they could have done a bit more theming effort with it, but I was used to them no theming in any ride, so I was glad to see a little bit of theming. So that was the only real bit of actual like set theming aside from one other ride here. So maybe two if you count the ones not pictured here. So I'm gonna put Batman above Scorcher. The ride itself is a good inversion coaster. Lots of inversions, goes pretty fast. Again, I'm going rapid fire through these. Next one I went to was the Mindbender, the Riddler Mindbender coaster in the same part of the park, the Gotham area. This one I was also pleasantly surprised by. It kind of takes you into a slightly more wooded pond area behind part of the park that you don't really see, and it has some good loops. It's kind of a more basic looping coaster, simpler looking trains. Not as, actually, I'd say it's similar. Like, I liked it about as much as the Batman ride. It was surprisingly good, and it wasn't too rough on me. I enjoyed it, so I'm gonna put it. Yeah, here. For now, I'll put it between Scorcher and Batman. Next up is I went around the back. I finally got water in an open stand, and the person there was sympathetic, so I got 2 cups of ice water instead of 1. So whoever the woman was that gave me the 2 cups of ice water, you're a lifesaver. And now, finally refreshed and actually have some water in my system, I went over to the next part of the park, which I found I would have ridden Blue Hawk, but it was closed. So instead, I rode Great American Scream Machine. It's an out and back wooden coaster, and kind of an older one. And even though I really like wooden roller coasters, this one just wasn't as impressive. It was almost, I wouldn't say smooth. It was rickety, but like the track was too simple. It was just an out and back, nothing really complex, no real G's on much besides a bit of airtime, and even the airtime it did have the ride just wasn't that memorable. Like, I was expecting more, and like, cause again, it was going for that old boardwalk style feel, and I guess they captured that. But there's a reason there aren't many old style boardwalk wooden coasters left. They're antiques, and this one is paying homage to an antique, and it's not doing it right. So I just didn't find it that memorable. I'll still put it above. Yeah, I'll put it above Daredevil, but it's C tier for me. Next up was Superman. I waited way too long for this. Way too long. Not enough staff working on it. They only had one side open. In fact, it was only one train. They only had one train operation. Or was it 2? No, it was 1. They had one train operation, so it was really slow. And I was pissed because like I had to wait 2 extra trains because the one train they were running, the row I happened to pick, and the row in front of that one that I was originally in, both had a seat that was out of order. So the parties ahead of me were all messed up, and I had to wait a lot more than I should have. And they didn't really theme this ride at all. The only theming in it was just a few screens. There was a screen that said, like, broken connection error or something. And honestly, that screen described my entire vibe or feeling I had during my trip. And the only other theming besides that was just some signs with basic synopses of Superman comic characters, and that's it. That's all the theming they did. But aside from that, it was a flying coaster. Or sorry, I forgot what the official term is. It's like Manta at SeaWorld, where you board like this, but then you're facing down. Like, you're facing down, and it soars like that, where when you go on a loop, you're facing up and you see the track of the loop as you're going over it. So the fact that it goes like that is cool, but I think Manta does it better at SeaWorld. Like, Superman just feels like going through the motions. I don't know if I was just jaded at that point, but like, no effort into like theming, not even music or anything. It was just, I don't know. The inversions themselves were good. It was a good coaster. Alright? I'm not gonna get ahead of myself. It was a good coaster. But I think people had overhyped it. I think it's overrated from what I had heard. So I'm gonna put it. Where would I put it in comparison to the others? Do I like Batman more? I'll put it below Batman. Just because Batman looked like it had a bit more effort put into at least theming, and it gives me more of a Busch Gardens homesy feel. So I don't know. That's nitpicky, but this entire park deserves some nitpicking. I just feel bad for the staff. Like, it's not the staff's fault that this place was so abandoned. Like, this place felt like a ghost town. It really did. While I was going around, there was barely any people there, and yet the lines were still decently long, at least for Superman. Like, way too long for Superman. Afterwards, I did Justice League Battle for Metropolis. This is a dark ride. I don't know why they don't have the other dark ride here, because I want to talk about the other dark ride. I'll leave it here for that. But I went to Justice League. It's a dark ride where you basically stop Lex Luthor and save the Justice League, and you shoot at things. And it's kind of screen-based with some... they tried to go for a thing where they blend visual elements and screen elements. It would have been good, except for the music. The music wasn't working. So it's just the shooting sound effects and the sound effects of the characters talking. I think it had music at one point, but it just wasn't running that day. Even in the station, it was just eerie. Like, all you heard was the sound from the story and the screens above you. And like sound effects and the speaking. There was no music, and that killed the vibe. It just felt weird, almost funny, because like there's so much dead air. Like, once you pass a scene, it's just quiet once you get to the next one and all the sound effects start playing again. But there's no music. And I'm going to review it the way I see it. The way I went on it, it was comedically bad. Just, it would have been up more, like, you could have easily just made sure the music worked, but they were not maintaining the ride properly. And it just, no. It was comedically bad. Next up is... Did I do Twisted Cyclone? Let me remember. That's the problem. I don't remember if I had done some of these rides, just because of how unmemorable a lot of the park was. Twisted Cyclone. I was not able to ride that. You know why? I got in line for it near the end, but I wanted to do this first because it was closer. I did another ride between that, but I'll get to the ride I did before this one after. So I went to another dark ride, and I loved it, but then I went to this one. This is the Dahlonega Mine Train. I don't know if I'm saying it right. It's an old arrow, and it does not have enough height. It does not get enough height to get enough energy that it needs for a cool layout. The layout was just boring because it didn't have enough energy. There were 3 different tiny lift hills, and then it does a little drop at the end. This ride needed more height. It was just kind of forgettable. Like, and they didn't do much with the mine train theming at all. So, almost nothing with it. I'm gonna put it here. This is more memorable just because of how weird it was. This one's just in one ear, out the other, forgettable. But Twisted Cyclone, I was almost gonna get on that. That was the other good ride in the park. That was their RMC. That was their Rocky Mountain Construction wood steel hybrid. I was about to get on, and then it closed for lightning warning. And I was going to wait, but then I looked and I saw it was going to be raining for the whole rest of the night. And lo and behold, it was. So with a heavy head, I just left the park. So I didn't get to ride it. And I was not going to go back. I will never know what that ride is like, because I am not paying $35 for parking to get back in there, let alone a ticket. The only other 2 rides I rode in the park that were not on this list was one called the Joker Funhouse Coaster, which it's just a family coaster. I waited too long for it. It's just a short little kiddie coaster, nothing to write home about. But then there was the one saving grace. The ride I remember the most about this park. The ride that actually stays in my mind, that I know more than Goliath, that I remember more than Goliath. We'll get to those pictures. That was a picture of the parking. I'm waiting you out. I'm getting through my pictures here. Here's a picture of the bad parking. I had to go through all this parking woes. We'll get to that. And here's another thing about it. Staff shortages there. People complaining most of the rides were being closed. But anyways, the ride I remember the most was Monster Mansion. This is a dark ride water attraction, kind of like Pirates of the Caribbean. And it is trippy. You go in this like Victorian mansion at first, and then out into this picnic, and it's all these monster animatronics welcoming you to their little home or whatever. So you go through this like flooded Victorian home with these monsters, and eventually you go to the bad part of the town with the evil monsters, and it's, you know, cheesy, and like they had the fun part and then the spooky part, and then it's like, oh, you made it out of the bad people place, and there was a good monster with a cannon or something that blasts them away, and it's silly. It's dumb, silly fun, and then you're like, oh, here, go back into the house, and then we'll get you to the unload station, or like, thank you for joining us. And then, nope, you thought. You go inside this door, and then there's this big giant monster that like sprays stuff at you, or is supposed to anyways. So they get you with a second fake out, and it's really funny. Like, this ride is so dumb. It's a stupid, dumb, dark ride, and it's one of my favorites. It's a trip. It's an actual trip and a half. This stupid dark ride. Of all the coasters in this coaster-centric Six Flags park, this dinky little monster dark ride is the one that I remember the most. If it had a slot in this tier list, I put it in S tier. Just because it actually stuck with me. Even the hypercoaster, Goliath, just nothing here felt like it had soul. Nothing. Except Monster Mansion. I don't know if it's based on like a kid's book series or something, but I don't know how. When the weird dark ride is the highlight of my day in a coaster-centric thrill park, you know you're doing something wrong. And just going back, again, with the staff thing, so many rides were closed. And again, my experience mirrored this person's. Employees were more friendly in the past, apparently, to the people who had gone to it a lot. But this place when I went, felt like a ghost town. Most things were closed. Most food places were closed. Most flat rides were closed. It was just, it felt like a ghost town. And like this person had it even worse. When he went, Goliath was closed due to staffing issues. Thankfully, they had 3 people to spare to work on their peak coaster. So I hope that they get their act together. Because this park just seems so sad. Although there was a sign of hope. I was walking around and one of the staff members saw me taking a picture of an interesting looking place. This isn't the picture I took. This is a similar one. This was an old log flume ride they used to have. After I went there, or when I was there, this part, they had demolished everything except, even the landscaping, except for the bare bones blue part right here. Everything above the ground level was torn out. And I'm just seeing the shell of a ride, and he's like, oh, are you a big theme park enthusiast? And I go, sure. And then he's like, oh, well, I heard they may be putting a new coaster in there where that slot is. And I'm thinking, oh, that's cool, thank you. And that guy gave me a bit of hope, because he seemed like he actually cared about the park. He was the only person, to me, it seemed. Because, again, I'm not mad at their staff. Their staff are probably just tired out from a long summer, the ones who had been there. Tired about the state of things. I don't blame them. But that guy left a little bit of, whoever it was that I talked to that day, like, that helped make my day, because that was something I remembered. He was excited about something for the park. He actually cared. And I know it's hard to care a lot with times like this, but like, that stuck with me. I don't mean to get so weird, like sentimental or something, but like, this park seemed like such a drab. Like, even the train. Like, they had a train that would have gone through this park, and I saw it from Goliath, the shed for it. It was just sitting in there, not running. It was sad. Maybe they ran it in the peak season, but I don't know what their peak season looked like. When is their peak season? So, if any of y'all have been to this park, say in the comments what your experience was like. In fact, do this for all the videos that I made, if your experiences are in the parks that I've been to here in this series. If any of you all have been to Six Flags Over Georgia, let me know what it was like. Because I did not get the best that park could offer. The question is, has anyone gotten the best that park can offer? Or was it even there? Hate to end on a bad note, but it's this park that made me appreciate the other parks so much, and appreciate how much effort, how much of a coordinated goal it is. How much effort from everyone has to go together, the scenery, the maintenance, the merchandise, the pricing, the guest experience that goes into making a enjoyable theme park experience. It makes you wonder, like, how hard these people have to work to ensure that experience is a big thing. And me wanting to go into the theme park industry, this little tour here has given me tons of insight into how all of this would work and what I want to do. Because to me going into this industry, I want to make sure that no one has an experience like I had at Six Flags Over Georgia. Because it was a lot of small failures that compounded together to just leave a bad taste in my mouth. And honestly, if that little stupid monster dark ride wasn't there, I would have completely considered that a waste of time. But it can show that a few good things can make what would have been a terrible experience just a little more bearable. So, let's hope Six Flags gets better. I hope they do. And I hope that we'll get a lot of interesting news with theme parks in the future. I mean, I am living next to Epic Universe being built right now, so we'll see how that works. And I hope that the competition between these companies drives some good innovation. So, that was my visit to Six Flags, and that wraps up my mini-series of all the parks I went to this summer. So, I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Leave your thoughts in the comments, and I will see you all next video.